I really want to start off by talking to Kale Chip in Kentucky. Kale Chip, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Hey, so just to kind of
Hey.
yeah, hey, to update Christy and people who didn't watch last week, do you want to kind of fill them in on what we talked about last week?
Yeah, so I first of all I realized that my delay is a lot longer than I thought it was last time, so that's not good. But last week I came in to ask about basically how to I'm so sorry. I'm
That's
really
okay.
discombobulated right now. Basically, how to set boundaries while mourning uh, death, like in the presence of religious people. So that's where I'm at.
Hmm.
Yeah, we talked a good bit about making sure that those boundaries are set and that you're saying, "Hey, here's what I'm comfortable with." Having a therapist here on the line is something I'm really grateful for because I'd love to get his opinion on it. But just to kind of update, it says in the notes that you did it. You visited your friend's grave and you interacted with those people. How did it go?
Well, yeah, so I ended up going at a time where other people weren't there, which was really good. Like I guess we just went earlier on in the day and didn't run into anyone, so it was just me and my husband and one of my friends. And while we were there, we just talked about like memories that we had with this person, and I wrote him a letter and I left it on his headstone, and it was really nice. It was
Oh,
healing, I would say. Yeah, I
so
did
good.
want to mention that I feel like last time I sounded too cynical because like it's not that I've had any specific negative interactions with the people that I was thinking of, but I guess my anxiety forces me into like a worst case scenario headspace as like a protection mechanism, you know?
Yeah, your guard's up. It makes sense to be at your most defensive when you're at your most vulnerable. And, that defensiveness may not actually be serving you. It may not be in your best interest, but I think we can have a little bit of compassion for where you're coming from and for that need right there. I
Absolutely.
uh, I'm I'm glad that you had that opportunity. It sounds like it was a much needed bit of respite during a time of mourning. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's this weekend has been like very emotionally strenuous, and I actually like just found out this morning that my family cat passed away.
Hmm.
So that doesn't help, you know.
No, I'm so sorry. The thing is, no matter how you approach it, no matter what, what you're feeling when it comes to, feeling angry or snarky or cynical or anything like that, just looking at the comments from your call last week, there are people who connected with you. And in the live chat, people who went, I'm dealing with a similar thing, or I've had to deal with the same thing. And I remember when we talked, I told you I'm still angry about the way they handled my grandmother's funeral.
Mm.
And so it's absolutely okay. Being your authentic self is something that can be really, really cathartic, not just for, you know, your experience, but I think for people who are watching who may not be able to express themselves the way they wish they could.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, that's one thing that I've struggled with. I mean, especially the anger. I feel like I identified where most of it was coming from on Friday because, like, since I was with my friend, I just told him like I don't know what to do with all this anger inside me right now, and he asked, why I think I feel angry, and I said that I I don't know, like it just doesn't feel fair, that we get to miss out on making more memories. And he said that he definitely feels like we've been robbed, and that's just when it clicked. And like, yeah, it makes me want to, almost go back to like being 12 years old and like waving my fist in the air and being like, God, why would you do this? But it's like I have to deal with that internally now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's value though in having those emotions validated and having somebody put a little bit of a label on them for you. It sounds like that's been part of the challenge here is not knowing or not being surrounded by people that maybe shared those emotions and probably weren't doing a great job of holding space or creating a little bit of room to validate the fact that you're feeling anger and you're allowed to feel angry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But I'm really glad that things turned out and that you were able to kind of have that experience. I know we asked you to call back, and it feels really good getting that kind of closure, at least on our end, hearing how things went for you. So thank you for following up,
Yeah.
and thank you for checking in.
Well, I did. I feel like my question last time was less pointed than I wanted it to be, and like speaking of anger, I guess I was just wondering if you guys had more advice on like how not to be angry at religious people while responding to common religious tropes while like that you might hear at funerals and stuff.
Hmm.
Ooh, all right. I know that I've said my fair piece on this before. Christy, what do you think?
Yeah, I might start by encouraging you to let yourself feel angry. Yeah, I don't think the goal here is to not be angry. Whatever you're feeling, that's just what you're feeling, whether you're happy, whether you're sad, whether you want to shoot somebody, like those are just the emotions. Your actions, on the other hand, that's something that I want you to be a little bit more mindful of. You're allowed to feel angry. And I feel like if you are telling yourself not to be angry at religious people, don't be angry at religious people, all you're going to succeed in doing is not getting rid of the anger, but just sort of convincing yourself that you had until you sort of blinded yourself to it. And then you all of a sudden are going to have all of these big emotions and they're coming out of nowhere. You find yourself in a conversation and you're like, stay calm, stay calm, stay calm. And next thing you know, you're shouting and you don't know why. And it's because you've been angry this whole time, but just convincing yourself that you're not. So I want to encourage you to be okay with being angry. The question becomes, how do you maybe release that anger a little bit? And how do you keep from being aggressive or violent with it? And I think that starts by just having a little bit of compassion for yourself, being able to say, of course I'm angry. This is an angering situation. What kind of human being wouldn't be angry in this moment? With my experiences, with everything I've been through, with everything that's happening right now, it makes sense for you to be angry. So instead of pretending that you're not, just acknowledge that you are and be willing to do something about that. And the do something here can be anything from going on a run to taking a long bath to just being angry while watching old episodes of The Office or whatever else you do to be able to relax and show yourself a little bit of kindness. That word compassion just means being willing to be with the pain. And so if you are pretending that you're not angry, then it's preventing you from actually doing something about that anger. So I'd encourage you to start there by just being present with and accepting of those emotions. And then if you can show yourself a little bit of kindness, then you'll be set up to make your most wise-minded decisions and to only do things that you can feel proud of rather than letting that aggression come out and show itself in those ways.
That's beautifully put, Christy.
Yeah.
My goodness.
That was awesome. I mean, it kind of went in a direction that I wasn't expecting, but it was, yeah, that's eye-opening. I can definitely bring that to my therapist.
Good. The only other thing that I could possibly add is just recognizing that for the most part, most people who are perpetuating these ideas of they're in a better place and all of that, most of the time they're not doing it maliciously. Most of the time they're convinced it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes them, I mean, I know it may sound grating to a religious person hearing it, but I think in this context, they're also victims of that indoctrination as well. And, when you're in that, perpetuating it is just kind of built into that cycle. And so it's not always necessary to, I don't know, be angry with them when they are in their own journey, on their own process, but they're probably not being malicious. I don't know. I don't know your situation, but It helps me.
Right. Yeah. I think it's because like when they say things like that, I just kind of the way it hits me is that they're just assuming that everyone around them, shares the same views that they do, which automatically comes off as condescending. But I tend to forget, at least in that moment, that they're not thinking about that. They're just kind of trying to soothe themselves.
Yeah, and finding that little bit of empathy makes sense. And that is a way to diffuse some of this anger by just kind of focusing on that common humanity, the fact that they are also struggling with something and going about it in some different ways, and some ways that may not be all that evidence-based and may not actually be all that helpful, but that at least from their own point of view and with their own experiences, they've come to by honest means, and that make a certain kind of sense to them, even if they don't necessarily line up. But it is invalidating to be expected to hold on to these beliefs that just don't make sense. And that sense of being invisible is a thing that causes and stirs up frustration and anger in the best of us. So there's nothing to apologize for when it comes to what you're feeling. It's only your words and your actions that I would encourage you to take a little bit more ownership of. And it sounds like you're working hard to do that.
Cheers. Hey, Kale Chip.
Yeah.
We're going to head over to the next call, but thank you for following up with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to ask one last thing. Since there were a lot of people in the comments saying that, like, rep your music or whatever, I haven't uploaded anything publicly, but do you mind if I, like, share what my friend's band is, the one who passed away?
Yeah, as good as you've been, I'm happy to. Go for it.
Awesome.
For people who want to hear Kale Chip's friend who recently passed, how can we hear their music?
You can find them on Spotify. They also have an Instagram account, but they're called Astronomy Club, and they just released like a memorial EP. So
nice,
pretty awesome.
Maybe drop a link in the Talk Heathen Facebook fan group for any fans that are curious and showing a little bit of support.
Yeah. All right, Kale Chip, take care.
I will put it in the live chat.
Okay, take care.
Fair enough. You have a good night.
Okay, thank you. You too.